What's up, everybody? This is Sam with Sam Shady Sports coming at you once again. This time I'm talking about the USFL suing the USFL. I'm sure you've already heard about the story if you follow the USFL at all. The fact of the matter is, they are the original USFL. Sorry, that they go by the real USFL. So they are suing the current USFL run by Brian Woods with help from Fox. Um, So, without getting too far into the lawsuit, I believe that there's a very obvious and clear solution to their issue. Um, Quite frankly, I believe that there is a solution that could potentially benefit both parties and completely eliminate any need for a lawsuit. And it's very obvious and it would not be that difficult to accomplish. And that would be a partnership. Rather than fighting over a name, why not just join forces? The real USFL built the nostalgia that Brian Woods is playing off of to this day. So, with that being said, they have a definite case for trademark infringement, other than the fact that Brian Woods did, in fact, apparently contact the last owner of the USFL ownership rights, which was technically, I believe it was the A11 Football League, if I'm remembering correctly. They were the team that tried to relaunch the USFL in 2014, which was the last attempt. Prior to that, the rights belonged to a group that had acquired them in 2011. And prior to that, they belonged to the USFL, as far as I can tell. The thing is, the USFL, the original USFL, the real USFL as they like to call themselves, um, they are basically saying that because the current USFL went through back channels through these other groups rather than going through the original USFL themselves, that's exactly how they're infringing on the trademarks and the copyrights that are still held by the real USFL. The problem is that technically Woods did approach the owners of the namesakes and the ownership rights at one point. It just was not the original USFL. I'm not quite certain how exactly they determined that they are still the owners of the naming rights. I don't know if it was a situation where he had just given permission for these leagues to use the rights and still pay them royalties, or what exactly the deal was there, but there was no agreement between Fox and Brian Woods and the original USFL on any sort of deal or royalties prior to this. In fact, talks with the real USFL and the current USFL did not go well at all. They actually last talked in 2021, and to my knowledge, there has been no civil talks since. But the thing is, I don't know that at any point in time a partnership was offered to the real USFL. And I think if it was, it would be something they would dramatically consider. The reason being, Brian Woods is an established CEO of spring football leagues. This is his third launch of a league. And if you look back, he was the guy who ran the spring league. So, looking at it from both sides, there's obviously much to gain with a partnership. As I mentioned before, the USFL, the real USFL that is responsible for the nostalgia that Brian Woods is playing off of. So Brian Woods would benefit twofold by creating a partnership with these guys. First of all, the partnership would eliminate any need for the lawsuit, as I mentioned before. That, in turn, would also open up doors for him to bring in more former USFL players to help represent the new league. Guys like Jim Kelly, Larry Zonka, as well as former executives and maybe even former owners. The owners are particularly something that interests me. If you were to bring in this original group, which still has some original owners left in the group, there is a possibility that you could immediately start selling some of the franchises to the original owners and not only restore the ownership group that was originally in power, but at the same time guarantee the future health of the league. Um, it's no secret that the USFL has made clear that they fully intend to have franchise ownership to help alleviate the costs on the league itself. This is the best course of action to keep a league like this afloat. It's no secret that that's part of the reason why the NFL is so successful, because they are not footing the bill for everything. On top of that, the owners, as individuals, prefer to run their own teams the way they would like to because they can kind of control and manipulate the profits that they make based on how they spend their money or how they charge fans. So naturally, there's a desirable reason to be an owner. There's also a desirable reason to have owners for the league. So this in itself would be a very interesting fact for Brian Woods to explore. To make matters even more significant for them, the original USFL is still in touch with um, merchandise distributors, as well as currently still has rights to a TV contract. How that's still in effect, I have no idea. But the fact remains that these are still in place. So, with that being the case, this immediately opens up Brian Woods to opportunities with potentially those TV networks in conjunction with Fox, assuming they would allow that, as well as the ability to sell new age modern jerseys right next to retro jerseys in the same distributors on both sides. It would open up the rights for him to sell the retro jerseys in his current distributors and vice versa. It would open up the ability for the real USFL to sell that as well, although at this point they'd be one group. But moving on, the benefits that would serve Woods the best here is the fact that he gets to not only bring in the original ownership group, but like I mentioned before, he gets to completely eliminate a lawsuit. It's like it never even happened. And before you sit here and say that the lawsuit is not a big deal, you need to look at Brian Woods' background. Brian Woods obviously had an idea that he was not going to be running both the USFL and the Spring League at the same time. I say this because the Spring League, despite their announcements that they were going to try and continue into 2022 and beyond, was sued for over a little over $1 million in unpaid hotel bills, as well as bills to use Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. However, the problem with all of that is Brian Woods just completely vacated the Spring League. In fact, at this point, it has now been announced that they are going to cease operations. Whether that is because of the lawsuit on that side or not, we do not, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't change the fact that now Brian Woods has lawsuits from the Spring League, and now he has a lawsuit on his hand with the real USFL. So rather than try and fight two battles or just file bankruptcy on the Spring League and move on, he can potentially eliminate both of those lawsuits by bringing in the real USFL, completely eliminating that one, and then, as I said, filing bankruptcy on the Spring League and wiping that away like it never even happened. Now, granted, there are probably other course of action that the hotels and such can take now that he is running the USFL. I'm not a lawyer by any stretch. I'm just speculating on a good way for Woods to get out of this situation. I personally do not want to see any bumps in the road for the USFL, and I see many reasons why the real USFL and the current USFL should simply team up and avoid the fight altogether. They both stand to gain from it, and there isn't much to lose from either side other than control. And at the end of the day, if all you really wanted was control, why didn't you relaunch the league, real USFL? And if all you wanted was control, Brian Woods, why did you bring in Fox as a minority partner? In my mind, this partnership makes too much sense to not happen. And honestly, I think the players, the coaches, and the other executives under Brian Woods would probably be all for this move. because it cements their future in more ways than one. Not only does the lawsuit disappear, but all of a sudden they have a lot more input from people who ran a successful league, albeit it was 30 years ago. There's also several names that are tied to the USFL that went on to be successful NFL players and could garner a lot of fan recognition, but as of right now, they are off limits because they are currently on the side of the real USFL. With all that being said, that's all I've got for you today. Leave your opinion in the comments below because I'm interested to see what you guys think about this. I know it's obviously not going to be a popular opinion because obviously you don't file a lawsuit if you're the best friends with the guy. But at the end of the day, you also don't file a lawsuit if you don't want to gain something. And gaining partnership in the current USFL would be a whole lot more worthwhile than any money you can get from a lawsuit because most likely you now have a consistent income rather than a one-time check and a win in a court battle. In my mind, we're all football fans here, so we should all want to see the USFL succeed, whether it's Brian Woods by himself or as a partnership with the real USFL. There's really no losing here. So, Brian Woods, I implore you, man, just make this happen. Become partners with the real USFL. Stop the lawsuit. Keep your league alive. Please, I'm begging you. I need year-round football. I cannot handle it. The off-season is way too long in the NFL. I prefer to have nonstop football, and I personally cannot wait till the 2023 season when XFL comes back and we have basically nonstop NFL, we have nonstop between the NFL, the XFL, the USFL, and the CFL. There will be no lapse in football. And to me, that is the best possible outcome from all of these spring leagues launching. There are more than enough players to go around, albeit the level of play in some of the leagues will obviously not be as high as the NFL. It may never be. That's okay. I don't need NFL level play in every league. And to sit here and say that that's the only reason you watch the NFL, that isn't true. It's not because the best players are there. It's because of the excitement of the game, the way it's portrayed, the people that you have built a relationship with, even if it's not somebody you necessarily know. You've watched these same names and these same players and these same teams for years. It's going to be the same way if we can get a spring league to stick around. Uh, whether you're a fan of the Stars, the Stallions, or the Generals, whatever. If these teams stick around and all of a sudden players start actually sticking in this league, suddenly you have another team and more players to root for, which, how can you complain about that? This is a win-win situation. So, like I said, that's all I've got for you guys today. Please, by all means, leave your opinions in the comments below. I can definitely take being told I'm wrong. I'm okay with that. Um, but I also want to hear what you guys have to think about this as well. If you're not subscribed, please, please subscribe to this channel. I am obviously just starting out. It's been not even 3 months since I started making videos. I'm at almost 50 subscribers, and by the end of next month, I would love to hit 100. Now, I know that's a lofty goal, but I'm looking at you guys to help me make this happen. I'm going to continue to bring to you at the best possible content I can, including further player interviews. And for those who haven't followed my Twitter yet, I have upcoming interviews with Matt Mangle, Cameron Eccles Looper, as well as Trey Dante Hill, Davis Alexander, as well as potential returns from Malik Hamner and Matt Mangle down the road. I also have a surprise interview coming up, which should be posted sometime next week. That will be an article. You can catch that on CFLnewshub.com. And I will also be posting that on my personal website, samshadysports.wordpress.com. As always, I would love it if you checked out my sponsors, eBay Sports Memorabilia, Amazon Music, Get Upside, And on top of that, you can save $20 off any purchase at SeatGeek with my code Sam Shady. So once again, any and all support is appreciated. Once again, I'm trying to grow this as quick as possible, but not just because I would like to get big and for no other reason. I love football. This is my passion. I've been following football for over 20 years now, and I finally have an outlet for it. So that's my whole reason for wanting to continue this. The more followers I get, the more subscribers I get, it just is more motivation to continue to produce better